You're tired again. Not the kind of tired sleep can fix. The kind that sits behind your eyes before you even open them. And a quiet part of you already knows something is wrong. You just decided not to look at it. Because looking at it means admitting you've been like this for a long time. Longer than you want to count. So you keep pretending it's a rough week, even though deep down, you know. This isn't a rough week anymore. This is just how you are now. What you have isn't stress. Stress ends. Stress has a shape. Something happens, you brace, it passes. This doesn't pass. It lowers its voice until you stop noticing it's there. Your mind doesn't switch off anymore. Not on weekends, not on holidays, not even in the middle of laughing. A small part of you is always scanning, calculating, bracing for something that never actually arrives. Your body has been in quiet survival mode for so long, it's forgotten what not surviving feels like. That's what this is. Not stress. A long, slow rewrite of how your nervous system works. You walk into a room and forget why you went in. You read the same paragraph 3 times and still couldn't tell someone what it said. You pick up your phone to send a text. 10 minutes later, you're watching a video. The text is still unsent. Thinking feels like waiting. And here's the thing. It's not that your memory is going. It's that you've stopped being fully here for your own life. The body shows up. The mind is running a process you can't see and can't stop. You're not forgetful. You're just somewhere else, even when you're here. Small things break you now. The one-word reply that suddenly feels cold. The "can we talk later" text that sits in your chest for 3 hours while you try to work. Someone asking you a simple question, and your brain treating it like pressure. You snap. Or you don't. You just go quiet in a way you didn't used to. Then you feel guilty. Then you shut down. Then you promise yourself you'll be better tomorrow, knowing you won't. And the people close to you have noticed. They just don't know how to tell you. The things you used to love feel flat. The song that used to make you cry plays in the background, and nothing moves. The hobby you were excited about sits there, quietly asking for a version of you that isn't available right now. You open 3 streaming apps, scroll through all of them, and close your laptop without watching anything. You're not depressed in the dramatic sense. You're muted. And the honest truth is, you're not lazy. You're not ungrateful for your life. You're running on a version of yourself that was never built to last this long. Pleasure takes energy. Curiosity takes energy. Feeling deeply takes energy. You don't have much left. So life keeps happening on the other side of glass. You see it. You just can't reach it. You sleep, and you're still tired. You take a weekend off, and you're still tired. You take an entire vacation, and on Monday morning, it's like you never left. Because rest isn't just physical. You can lie in bed for 10 hours and still wake up exhausted if your mind never stopped running. You don't need more sleep. You need permission to stop. And you've been waiting for someone to give it to you for years. A boss, a partner, a deadline, some outside voice that finally says enough. That voice isn't coming. It was supposed to be yours. You rehearse conversations that haven't happened. At 2 a.m., a thing you said in a meeting 6 months ago replays in your head, like your brain is charging you rent for it. A text goes unanswered for an hour, and your mind writes the worst possible story. You walk out of a conversation and immediately start reviewing it. Was that weird? Did I talk too much? Did they seem off with me? This isn't overthinking. This is a nervous system trained to scan for danger that isn't there anymore. The voice inside your head stopped being kind a long time ago. You just stopped noticing because it started sounding like your own. Pause the video for a second. I mean, actually, stop. When was the last time your mind was quiet? Not distracted, not entertained, not asleep, just quiet. If you had to think about it, that's your answer. Here's something you might have already noticed. You're in a conversation. You're nodding. You're responding. You're saying the right things at the right times. But somewhere behind your eyes, a quieter version of you is watching. Watching yourself perform, being present. Noticing that the real you isn't quite here. And wondering, for just a second, where you actually went. That's not a mood. That's not a bad day. That's chronic stress rewriting who you are. You didn't become distant because you stopped caring. You became distant because caring costs something now, and you don't have much to spend. You didn't become reactive because you're a bad person. You became reactive because you've been holding everything in for so long that the smallest pressure makes the whole thing leak. You're not colder. You're not lazier. You're not a worse version of yourself. You're what's left after everything else has been spent. And somewhere along the way, the version of you that laughed easily, cared openly, felt things deeply, didn't disappear. It just stopped being needed. In survival mode, joy is a luxury. Softness is a liability. Feeling is a risk you can't afford. So that version of you went quiet. And it's still in there, waiting. You just forgot it was there. You ignore it because you're still functioning. You get up, you work, you reply, you pay what needs to be paid. How bad could it really be? But you've confused functioning with fine. They were never the same thing. You ignore it because everyone around you looks the same. Tired, short, stretched thin. When everyone is drowning, drowning starts to look like the baseline. And you ignore it because if you actually stopped, if you really let yourself feel the full weight of how exhausted you are, a part of you is afraid you wouldn't get up again. So you don't stop. You don't check in. You don't ask the honest question. Because the honest question has been dangerous for a long time. You don't need a new routine. You don't need a retreat. You don't need an hour of meditation every morning. Your mind isn't tired because life is hard. Your mind is tired because it never gets left alone. You don't need to fix it. You need to stop feeding it. Fewer tabs, fewer voices, fewer opinions poured into your head before you've even decided what you think. And notice. Not fix, just notice. Notice when your chest is tight and you haven't exhaled in a while. Notice when your jaw is locked. Notice when you've been scrolling for 30 minutes without remembering any of it. Notice when someone asks how you are and you lie on reflex before you've even thought about it. That noticing is the first real thing you've done for yourself in a long time. The scariest part of chronic stress isn't what it does to you. It's that eventually, you stop calling it stress. You start calling it your personality, your life, just how I am now. You didn't heal. You adapted to being unwell. And adaptation is a very quiet kind of loss. You don't see it happening. You just wake up one day and realize you haven't felt like yourself in years, and you can't remember when that started. The version of you that felt alive didn't die. It just stopped being needed. It's still in there. The one who laughed easily, cared openly, felt things deeply, slept without a running mind. It's waiting. The only question is whether you remember the way back, and whether you'll go looking, before you forget there was ever anywhere to look for.